Hello, we will then know this is Alina Say, and this is a part 6 of our bonded endodontics series. In this part, I'd like to go over some of the historical obturation techniques that we have basically come along using with the old generation of sealers, and how the new generation of bioceramic sealers are allowing us now to use a whole new way of doing obturation. So in the previous tutorials, we explained that the idea of the whole history of endodontic obturation has been based on the condensation of gutta percha in order to minimize the sealer interface, because we've always had to get rid of the sealer due to its poor quality. However, now that we have a new generation of sealers that bond chemically to the dentin walls, are dimensionally stable, are antibacterial, are hydrophilic, and are biocompatible, there really is no longer a reason to minimize the sealer interface, because our sealers have now become fillers. To some extent, you could say, well, Ollie, then in that case, if our sealer is a filler, then why do we even need to use gutta percha? Why don't we just use the cement to fill the entire canal? And frankly, you would be right, because it actually, on a conceptual basis, it is possible to only use the bioceramic sealer because it's a filler to fill the whole canal. However, Real Endo is interested in teaching a more responsible technique for using the cement, which would then allow endodontists to be able to retreat this cases that would otherwise not work. Because don't forget, the bioceramic sealer and cement is not a magic potion. If a dentist does not clean the canal adequately, then the tooth will have a problem, and it will probably fail the same way any other case would fail if the tooth is not adequately treated. So understanding that principle is the reason why Real Endo has developed the hydraulic condensation technique as the more responsible way of doing endodontic therapy compared to just filling the whole canal with sealer. So let's talk about the couple of the other techniques, the lateral and vertical condensation technique, and then move on to hydraulic. By the way, I'm sorry, it's quite a windy day today. I decided to shoot outside because we're having great weather, something rare in Boston, but it seems like we're having quite a bit of wind. So hopefully that the audio is going to be okay and you can hear me. But historically, the lateral condensation was the first technique that was described, and you know, Dr. Frank Wine was a big advocate of this, University of Loyola in Chicago, and then the University of Iowa, Dr. Walton and so on, have all advocated for a very simple technique of lateral condensation. This technique was later on challenged with the advocates of warm thermoplastic gutta percha, including Dr. Herb Schilder, that in his article in 1967, Filling Root Canals in 3 Dimensions, he explained the reason why thermoplasticizing gutta percha and reducing the sealer interface through heated compaction of gutta percha would be a superior technique. Of course, none of these techniques really produced a better outcome at a clinical level that was reproducible with scientific statistical studies. However, this created a couple of different camps, people who were advocates of cold lateral condensation, as well as those who were advocates of the warm vertical condensation. And over the past 20 years, it seems like the warm vertical condensation camp has really tried to popularize this technique, which is basically fairly rigorous in terms of its technique sensitivity and the complexity of its implementation. However, the vertical condensation look has become more of a popular mainstay in endodontics. Well, this was all true because everything followed the same theory of minimizing the sealer interface. But now that we have a new sealer, bioceramic type generation of sealers that has